associate account strategist in sales in global customer care to a global sales operational lead within a time span of 15 to 18. So roughly about 3 years. So that transitionary period has also helped him position himself better. Okay, so that's a promotion of where he was in Bangalore in terms of his salary as well. So his salary in Bangalore was at about 8 lakhs, which then moved to, when he was in Dublin after 3 years, to $70,000. So that has also practically helped him position himself better overall. Okay. Now, if you actually see awards and recognition that have been put right at this spot, where he's saying he's got 19 awards at this workplace, right? He's a 2-time winner of the APAC Guru Award for driving improved team performance via socialization of best practices. 3 above and beyond awards for performance in 5% that consistently exceeded targets. So it's important that you write for that experience. In this case, his awards and recognitions were written over there. So if you also have certain internships, right, write the awards and recognitions if you did get any within that space. Now, the next thing is leadership and involvement. So what has he done? If you actually see, he has helped the organization with a volunteering aspect. He said to identify and improve NGO online campaigns, went beyond assigned Google duties to recruit and manage 20 volunteers with ad grants team to drive conversion uplift of 6%. Success led to creation of a dedicated full-time role. So basically, Google AdWords has this thing for NGOs where they can get about $20,000 worth of credit for advertisements, and that was not being used. So he actually drove that mission. Right? So it's important that you are able to bring this out, because there has to be a complete narration to your entire profile. Now, he's even written that he was a part of the psychology club at MIT, where he was a co-founder and vice president. And what was it that he did there? He said to aid students in self-development via psychology, co-founded official student body of 18 members that conducted workshops on topics such as negotiation and body language. Now, these things are very important. While anyone considers that you have taken this part seriously, what have you actually done? This becomes a part where someone can ask you, an admission officer can ask you this question while you get selected. That, tell me something about your psychology club. What is it that you did? And so there he can actually bring out his aspects. Also, many applications ask you for certain aspects that you want to highlight while you were at college. And that's where you can actually talk about some of these abilities. In addition to that, he wrote WSL Solutions, which is student-led incubated startup. So he managed a 5-person web development team and graphic design team on website development and branding projects. Now, he's written a very general, scope here, because there's so much to be written in the current workplace that he has, that this becomes a discussion, a matter of discussion, or a question that someone can ask you while in an interview. If you look at his additional information, he's written music, self-taught guitarist, currently training as a vocalist at the Dublin Music Institute. That is a very strong element, while you can add that you are doing something during your free time, which is really helping in self-development. And he's actually doing it officially at an institute as well. Then cooking, self-taught cook specializing in South Indian cooking styles, recipe courtesy of my far more talented mother. So that was a bit of some aspect of writing humor, right, in your resume. Now he's actually added that, and there's nothing wrong with adding a bit of humor to your resume, though just refrain from making it too loud. So boxing, he's written he's undergoing sparring training on Boxing Academy in Dublin, Ireland. So these are some of his additional, activities, additional things that he has done, which has helped him talk about himself just beyond, his workplace and his academics. Okay, so I'm going to now probably move from this part or this aspect of it to the next one, which is Divya's resume. Now, if you actually look at Divya's resume, and it's very well also carved out in her case. She was a BCom student. She was studying for her CA, and then she decided that I want to have this exposure towards a master's in management degree. And if you see her application, we actually helped her with one, understanding what are some of the things she needs to take up in terms of volunteering work. Here she's actually mentioned the National Association for the Blind. And one of the bigger activities which she really did was taking part in the Stanford Global Leadership Program. So if you see the Stanford Leadership Global Program, which she participated, only chose about 28 students from about 6,000 that applied. So that also helped her position herself better, because there was almost a week of what she attended at Stanford University, where they did extensive research and delivered presentations from key takeaways from the program. So that one, combined with the volunteering work that she believed in, which was the National Association for the Blind, which she spent almost a year. So she volunteered for 6 months, and then she went back and actually helped out for about 6 months. So in total, she was able to really write about why she took up volunteering work, which was consistent and which was broad for a period of time. So don't put volunteering work, which is only for a month, 2 months. If you're able to put something for a longer period of time, it will help you. Now, for her education, and we've put it here, is she's at Duke University at the Fuqua School of Business. Now, why we picked up this resume after she had actually finished the program is because we helped her with her, full-time position after that. We helped her with building her resume and then applying to programs, and helped her even with her interview process. And she's currently working at E&Y. So if you actually see, this is what we essentially did is the first part, again, when it comes to Duke University, and you saw that how Punapa had put everything, put your details of the education first. Here, the other additional part that was put is she was a graduate research assistant at the Economic and Antitrust Laws. So she was under a professor, researching about that. Then if you see, she was at the Association of Women in Business. She was a member. She was also a member at the MMS and MQM Consulting Interest Group. She also followed the Fuqua Client Consulting Practicum. Now, this not everyone's able to complete. So she has a lot more to talk about by the end of the program. So if you have something important while you're studying right now, in that medium, make sure that you are including anything in, like research or any, particular awards that you've got, or anything that's noticeable in terms of leadership. Enter that here. And write if you've been a member, if you've been a leader. It's important. Then if you see in the second phase, she's actually written, she finished a Bachelor's of Commerce Business Management, and this was a CGPA, which was 6.31 out of 7. On the right-hand side, of course, you should write where you were and what is the month and the year. Experience. So here she's put Ernst & Young, Professional Business Advisory, Performance Improvement and Risk Management. She interned at the Financial Services Advisory, where she's written research, creative and strategic business solutions for clients from multinational companies, worked with senior management to advise clients in multiple sectors of strategic growth initiatives, and collaborated with teams to develop operating model for the client's new products. That was her first experience. The second one was Curious, where she was a senior associate and in the strategic planning for 7 months. And prior to that, she was an intern in the market analytics. And prior to that, she had worked at New Opportunity Consultancy, where it was a microfinance company, an authorized business correspondent to leading bank, promoting financial institutions and empowerment of women. So she had actually more to talk about, micro lending, for instance, to women. So she had more that she could focus on with this experience while she was writing her SOP as well. So your resume, remember one thing, why does an admission officer need the resume? If I had to ask that question to any one of y'all, and if y'all want to just type that out, why do you think an admission officer needs your resume? Even though you're submitting your SOP, you're submitting your documents, you're submitting your transcripts, everything, why do you think they need your resume? If anyone wants to answer that, maybe one answer also would do.
Um, so, so yeah, the resume is given for them to have a general understanding as to how our experience has been like overall in short. So that gives them a gist of our education qualifications, our skills, and how can we be useful to them and be helpful to the company that we want to do. So that kind of helps them in recruitment and gives them a perspective. So yeah, that
Absolutely.
also helps them in comparing the rest of the people that they have for recruitment for that given position.
Absolutely. So it's your first, thank you, Sakshi. So it's your first, gateway to them actually opening up the rest of your application material to look at. So remember that the more, the more well polished or the well presented your resume, it is your best marketing document. Let's put it this way. So if you're able to market yourself through your resume, they're going to actually open up everything else and read everything very carefully, because everything that you've written on the resume needs to match with what your recommendations are going to be. Because when I read all of this, does your recommender actually write everything accordingly? Have you done all of these things? Has it been covered somewhere or the other? So your resume has to be very clean, has to have everything to market and promote yourself so well that they really want to open the rest of it and go through all of it, whether it's your academics, whether it's your, LORs, whether it's your SOP. It's not going to make any sense for them to look at it and make all sense of it until they see everything practically written well here. So remember, it's one of the most important documents, whether it's a recruiter who's looking, right? Even a recruiter, I've been in that position many a times. Imagine that a recruiter is looking at your resume and everything is written in a very tiny font, or it's not written in the right font. They're just not going to be able to see it. And if they've skipped it, that's not going to help you either. So very important that you're actually putting things in bold, know what to put in bold, know what to basically make sure that you have in there. That's going to help you overall while you're putting this process together. So maybe I should speak less now. Maybe I can hear some of you all, talk about things. But so the key elements of the resume is good grades, test scores, academic activities, internship experience, awards, extracurricular activities, community service, and volunteering, and any special skills. So it's summarized right here for you. I can tell you it wasn't easy for me in my first. So when I went to University of Michigan, my second year, I was applying for a software development position at a couple of companies because I was actually a part of the EECS department. And I still remember this was the year 2000 or so, 2001 actually. And the number of applications at that time for computers had started sort of rising, but there were only about 4 positions, and probably about 300 applications at that point in time. And you had to really make sure that your application is well written, but your resume played a huge role in making sure that you had every aspect covered. So whether you worked on campus somewhere, you need to mention that as well. Why? And of course, they'll give you a technical assignment and they would want you to go through it. So I still remember that, at the end of the technical assignment, there was a behavioral round. And, they asked me that, why is it that, you want this opportunity in particular? And I still remember answering the fact that, um, I really wanted to go to Seattle at Microsoft and be able to work with, the kind of, team that they had at that point in time. And they said, why don't you, don't you have that at Michigan? And I said, at Michigan, I have a great peer set, a great, group, but I don't have a great mentor. And I think you have to be prepared with some of these answers also yourself. And that sort of, impacts how you write, your resume out. So some tips: keep it compact, 1 page preferred, focus on length and depth of commitment, be detailed wherever possible, highlight things that you weren't able to write about in your essays. short answers. Formatting is important. Be genuine and accurate. So just a little of what the slide sort of covers. So as far as extracurricular activities, how do they help in terms of your resume building? One is it sort of shows leadership skills. So whether it was, you took up some kind of mentoring, anything in terms of sports, professional societies, what did you do not just inside of, of your college, but what did you do outside of it? Did you actually participate in maybe startup competitions, for instance, if you were more interested there? Mention that. If there's critical, writing, if you enjoy that, and you participated in some of those things, do actually write that. I mean, if you were part of a road track and you took care of that, I mean, write it, and write it in a way that you actually show, again, context, action, and result. So you can show that by actually saying that you were a part of that activity for a considerable amount of time, not that you just finished it off quickly and moved on. That's your internship, right? You get only 2 months or 3 months. But anything which is extracurricular, you probably worked a longer period, on it. That's the thumb rule. So going ahead, how to get an internship. Wow, that's I think on every student's mind today, especially in a pandemic like this, right? So I feel that increasingly many of them have started looking at remote internships. If I can ask you this question, because you're already 100 participants here, how many of you all actually have taken up a remote internship? Brilliant. Great. So I can see Ishika, I can see Jay. Wow, fantastic, lovely. So I can already see 3 of them saying that I have. Brilliant. So would any one of you all, so let's say Ishika, do you want to talk about your remote internship? How is it going?
So yeah, I had one that I was doing recently. It was about economics and research about it. And initially, it started off as an internship where we had to research about the database of all the countries and how it is affecting, their international trade. So it was with Ventura Capital, and it was pretty amazing. I think I never thought that I could have a virtual experience where I could learn a lot. So yes, of course, remote internships help a lot. Like, you have a lot of time and you can dedicate a lot more time also. So yeah.
So
Thank
you
you.
want to maybe tell others of how you managed your day, and if it was at home, it was remote, how did the team work with you, or how did they help you get up to speed?
All right. So I was leading a team of 6 members, and yes, it as a team leader, it has been a little hectic, and you need to make sure that everybody else is also contributing, and the common goal that we want to achieve is, at the end of the day, uh, having that particular research done for that particular country. And yes, it was very important that everybody could also present. And the basic problem that I faced was, my team was a team of engineers who wanted to start learning economics, and it was very important for them to understand the basics. So yeah, it was initially difficult, but the motivation that they had to learn and understand each and every concept and contribute to the presentation was enough to keep me going and working for that internship.
How lovely. How many months was it?
It was a period of 2 months that I could continue that internship. And I still have the databases, so I still get emails every day on the site that we logged into. So yeah, I receive daily updates from that ETF website.
Fabulous. And you want to tell others that how did you go about looking for it?
So I was just going through LinkedIn and I was really wanting to search for an internship. But my way was not to go to companies' portals and everything. I started connecting with people who are working in higher positions in companies and maybe contacting them. And what are the opportunities that they are posting? Because usually they post about projects that they are going to work on. So this was one where Mr. Harish was actually starting to work for a project under where he wanted to have like his own website for Ventura. And yeah, I mean, that led me to just like contact him personally, where he dropped in a message and I could fetch the internship. I think it is very important to look for people who are, posting the right opportunities for the youth.
Fabulous, absolutely. And I think this is wonderful. I'm so glad that you actually mentioned all these points, Ishika. Congratulations to you. I think it's seems like you've done a great job.
Thank you so
Um,
much.
yeah, I think that this is exactly what everyone needs to be today, is more innovative about finding an internship. And it's all about, and LinkedIn is a great place. I think that it's a fantastic place for you to reach out. You need to keep yourself updated. So one of the things, of course, that we haven't covered here is how do you build a great LinkedIn profile? And I think that one is communication is extremely important. Communication on your page, your profile. What is it that you've done? How can someone actually be interested in your page or interested in your message when you drop one? Because even when someone sends you a message, they want to actually see your profile, see if this is someone that I want to even interact with, or do they actually have some key abilities, and of course they would want to see that you're sending them a resume. So that's why we had the first discussion of why that resume was important, what all you need to add to it. um, I've seen many fancy nice resumes, people putting different colors and stuff like that, and coming up with stuff. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't, but definitely as far as application to universities, don't do a colored resume. They don't like it. So they like it as plain black and white, where you're actually mentioning everything accurately, like we just went through. But I think as far as an internship is concerned, one is consider what it is that you want to do. Consider where do you want to actually start, right? What is it that you want to probably take up? And I think it could be something which is in your domain. It could be something that you are possibly interested in, you want to explore, and and maybe that's something that you might want to take up later on. So you can never go wrong with an internship, according to me. But you need to have your story lined up of why you took it up in the first place. So if you want to explain that on your application, you have to make sure that you at least have an interest in something that you took up. And at the end of the day, that you had a you succeeded in it. So if you actually succeeded, where I just heard Ishika say, hey, this is great, I have people still getting in touch with me because I was leading this team, they successfully understood things after 2 months. That should be your goal. There has to be an output to it which you can really explain. So, one, definitely look out within your network, outside your network, for opportunities. Have a good resume built in, right? And reach out to companies, whether it's HR. So the earlier method of just writing to companies or looking at Naukri or just somewhere else, that's not the only way, right? There are plenty of ways to network within your own network. So one, ISEC definitely gives you a great platform because you have ISECers almost everywhere. So you can always reach out to them if there are opportunities. So that's your network beyond. Then you have your school network or your college network, and then you have LinkedIn, for instance. Also, any of your interests. So if you were a part of a finance club or something of that sort, and probably you organize something to do with startups, and you had met someone, reach out to them, right? Because they saw the work that you did firsthand, and maybe they will actually give you an opportunity as well. um, and remember, try to attach. So I know a lot of people don't do this, is attach a cover letter. At times it does help, because you're letting them know about why it is that you've sort of looked at their website, or you've actually looked at what their company does and why you're sort of interested. Because that makes it much easier for them to come back to you and say, okay, I looked at this information, I think at least you're interested, great, maybe I want to interview you. Also today, I think, and you might have seen in LinkedIn, the video interviews have become sort of popular. So one of the other things you could do is probably, practice doing some video interviews as well. Many of them are using that for these remote internships. So I think that's as far as the internships concerned. We can move on to the next slide. So how to get most out of your internship, and I think that maybe I can take one of the the others who actually wrote. I have, so I could maybe Jay can talk about his experience of how did he get the most out of his internship.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. So I did that internship long time back, and I was working with older people than me. So there was much more to learn. And I was like, that was my first internship. I was like paying on LinkedIn and applying for the internship. And I got one into content writing. And I was like pretty passionate about that thing. So I kind of got so much to learn. So yeah. I think I was supposed to talk about that, right?
Yeah, no, fabulous, great. I was just wondering, at your internship, Jay, if you can tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about how did you get the most of it? Like, did you actually reach out
Yeah.
and ask more questions?
Yeah.
Did you? So, if you can tell us more about how that experience went and what did you think you did to kind of make the most of it?
Yeah. So as I said, that was my first internship, and I was working with older people than me. So it was like pretty easy for me to reach out to the older people because for sure they had a lot of experience. So I, as a person, like do not uh, like ask more doubts, and I'm kind of very inquisitive about things. So like reaching out to people and asking them, is it right, is it wrong? So that's what helped me, and that's what I feel I made most out of it by asking people.
Fabulous. Great. So this sort of, kind of reiterates what he said is that, try to expand your knowledge, try to look for things to do. So of course, fulfill what your role is required. Have that inquisitiveness to, kind of learn more and participate. Build a strong workplace practice. So if someone's saying, hey, we're expecting you to finish this deadline or, show up the next day at this time, it's good to do that. There are times when, if you can't make it, communicate that and make sure that they know about it as well. Broaden your skills, keep track of what you do. I know it sounds, just simple and put up there, but actually there's a lot of stuff you can learn because sometimes if you've not been using it, for instance, a small thing like, using a Google form or using, Google Docs or Excel, and many places really use that to another level. Today, many other places have moved to CRMs, like using Zoho or, Salesforce and things of that sort. And it's completely changed. Technology's sort of taken over, so it's become a lot more easier. The other thing is request for regular feedbacks. It's very important that you do that. Find a mentor that can sort of help you. And of course, a great way is talk about what your experience has been, maybe on LinkedIn or in Instagram, like put it across there so that you can also get feedback from others and reach out to others because they might have been through similar experiences and you can connect with them. So moving on, I think there are some websites that have been sort of put up here as resources. They can be sent across also later, but you can go through some of them. And I think some of them have looked at global sort of internship websites where you can go and apply to global internships as well. Very possible. I actually have a couple of them this year that have are working with Netflix, Amazon, a couple of other companies also in this domain, and they're remote internships. What scores and exams can help me for your application? So popular competitive exams. So if you look at GRE and GMAT, a 320 on a GRE is it's a good score for going to good universities. A GMAT would is 700 plus, but it's okay if you are getting a lower score, but I wouldn't suggest getting anything lower than a 300 at a GRE or a 650 on the GMAT. So try to stick above a 650 on the GMAT and at least a 300 on the GRE. Even if I had to further break down the GRE or the GMAT, you have to make sure that your quant, and most of the students, their quant scores are always higher. See, there are some schools that meet those quant scores, and we'll see that on the next slide. Do you want to move to the next slide? Yeah. So this is, I think if you guys have already been through this, I'm not going to really, I'm just going to skim through it, saying, what the, the GRE is, comprised of. It's got the analytical, verbal reasoning, and quantitative reasoning sections. It's 3 hours, 45 minutes, 340 is the score. I'll sort of move forward from here to the GMAT. Okay, so the GRE. So list down the universities you plan to apply to, check the average GRE scores for those. Most universities will look at your verbal and quant scores, concentrate on scoring depending on the kind of program you aspire to pursue, and then aim to score at least 2 points above the highest score for your chosen university. So don't look at the average scores only. Try to look at scores, or, even if you get average scores, don't do that. Look, try to aim at slightly higher than what average scores you actually have. Even though this year and the next year is going to be test optional, remember that having a test score is better than not having it. So, and if you have a test score which is higher, submit it. It's better than not doing it. So moving on to the next slide. These are just some numbers over here for universities so that you have a slight understanding of it. Okay, and if you guys have any questions, you all can of course post it, but moving on. So the GMAT has, again, the analytical, integrated reasoning, and verbal reasoning section. Now, both these being a bit of the format, and I think they're available online until the 19th of May. There's going to be a slight change to that. So I think you'll have to stay plugged on the website to get more details on that. But the GRE, I think, has nothing of that sort at the present time. Moving on. So we're looking at, again, a 650 to 690 being good. For the GMAT, 700 plus is sort of better. It's ideal if you can to score a 700 plus, especially for universities that you're looking at, which are in the top 20, 25 across the world. They like to see that you have competitive scores. So the IELTS, this again just gives you a brief of 4 sections: the listening, reading, writing, speaking, and it's probably a more popular sort of English language exam. So TOEFL has always been very popular for the US, but and it's accepted everywhere. So is IELTS, but somewhere for immigration, for instance, in Canada also IELTS is more preferred. So accordingly, you'll have to sort of choose the tests that you want to take, whether it's IELTS or TOEFL. Well, now actually with the situation, most of just said whatever the university says, and whatever they accept, the immigration accepts as well. TOEFL has pretty much the same section, except that TOEFL can be taken in one day itself. Versus the IELTS. So moving on from here, the scores are valid for about 2 years to the test date. So just summarizing what our discussion has been is start early, plan ahead, be sure of your career interests, choose the right course and university, take initiative, be organized, enhance your skills, take advice from experts, involve them in your journey. Yes, I think, Rahul, thank you for mentioning that GRE, GMAT scores are valid for 5 years. Yes, questions, anyone? Should we move to the next slide? Okay, yeah, this is just a couple of success stories. So we have Nikunj, who was at Lehigh University. He was graduating with the 3.76 GPA. And he had come to us and he had 2 internships. He was unsure if he wanted to take the master's or the MBA. And he was fairly passionate about environmental engineering. So we suggested that he actually apply for his master's. He wasn't sure if he really wanted to apply to all the top universities. We helped him with applications to Stanford, Cornell, Carnegie Mellon, UC Berkeley, California Davis, and Texas Austin, and he got into all the universities that we applied to. And he had a GRE score of 321. Okay. Divya, again, the one that we saw her resume to, we helped her to get into Duke University and Boston College for the MIM program. She decided that she's going to Duke, and she's currently working at ENY. Next is Vivek. So Vivek's case is also fun. He was actually from Pune, and he met us at the MBA tour, and he was working at Tata Technologies. He wanted to pursue an MBA, possibly after, but then he was also of a mind that if there was another program that he could probably take, what would that be? And he was actually pursuing at Tata Technologies a role which was to do with more analytics as well. So we kind of suggested, and he was looking at Canada as an option, was his first choice. And so he thought that, maybe he would want to stay back after. So we chose about 3 or 4 programs, and he got into all of the programs that we applied to, including Ivy, McGill, and he got a scholarship. I think at McGill, he got for about $8,000. So, he did brilliantly well. We basically helped him through that whole thought process and what would actually make sense in terms of the school, and then work through that entire process of the application, thinking about the resume, the LORs, who do you apply? I mean, who do you have to take those LORs from? Those are very important. The SOP, and the SOP is not just one statement. You'll have, plenty of things to actually write through. And then you'll have some additional questions in your application. And then you have the video interview, and then, if they have another interview after that. So if you get an interview after, you have a fairly high chance, if you do well in that interview, to get in. Fourth is Punapa, who, you saw the resume for. He's at London Business School now. He graduated from MIT. He had a low CGPA. So you have a classic case here. He had a low CGPA, but he had a good high GMAT score. And then a lot of it is really working through every little detail of your application process. And your resume really is fundamental at that point. So yeah, moving on. I see that there are a couple of questions here. I think that as far as the product is concerned and what we do in our services, I think, Rupal, you can cover that with the rest. I can look at a couple of questions here, and I'd be happy to take them. Does your postgraduate degree subject? Okay, there's a couple of questions here coming. And college matters while getting into the best business school. So great question. I feel that, all business schools, if you're looking at an MBA, so I assume that this is, and so Yoga is talking about an MBA. The MBA really wants diversity. So, it really doesn't matter if you came in, but you have to look at the program that you're applying to. If you look at that program, most of the universities will tell you that, say, 30% comes from an engineering background, or, these many come from a business background. So it depends on the course that you're applying to. You will also know what your chances of getting in are if they're really picking out students typically from a business background or from an engineering. So if you look at the, 2-year, the MIM programs, if you're looking at, many of them don't need experience. As a matter of fact, you cannot apply to an MIM if you have more than 2 years of experience. You have to then go for an MBA or apply to an MBA program. So yeah, so I hope that answers your question. Nandini, do you take only commerce background specifically? No, we work with students of all backgrounds. We've helped a doctor who finished their MBBS and helped them get into MBA and an MPA program at Stanford. So it just, it sort of depends. We work with all kinds of students, and in terms of, and we don't only look at universities which are only on the top. We work across all universities, and that's why we have a bracket of 1,200 plus universities that we work on. Would you have any overview of how applications for design schools and art schools are far more different or perhaps an MBA in design strategy or sustainable design? So these are great questions. As a matter of fact, we had a webinar with University of Michigan and UVA, University of Virginia in January, where we covered this whole part about, about design schools or architecture or urban landscape. And yes, there are differences. You have to have a portfolio. There are things that you have to have in place. And it's not necessary in some cases that you have to have the GRE or the GMAT. It depends on the school and their requirements. I think it's just the language exam, TOEFL, which you need to have for sure. So I don't know if that, Nitya, that explains it, but to be honest, that all depends on what you really want to do and where it is that you're looking at. So, maybe the kind of school that you're looking at, the program, the requirements sort of might vary. It's a little bit hard for me to give you a lot more insight at this point to it. But Harish Menon, it is better to apply for specific programs like MSc Digital Marketing and BI than just MSc Marketing. This is a very open-ended question in a sense. When you say better, I'll say that if you look at, a one-year course in the UK and you're looking at Warwick, having a digital marketing class versus if you're actually looking at Manchester, I'm just giving you, examples. If you're looking at UK versus the US, again, it's always good to apply to one-year specific programs in a sense. That's why they're sort of 1 year and they're specific. So yes, it's good to just apply to one program, which is, maybe digital marketing, but there's nothing wrong if you're applying to two. You have to have a strong interest in both of them. There should be a reason why you want it. So when you ask me better, I don't know, are you talking from a perspective of being employed after, or what, for what, in what way? Maybe Harish, if you tell me that more specifically, I can help you out. Thank you for these insights. I had a question on how much does a second language help in the resume? A second language definitely helps if it's conversation, not just conversational, but probably if you know writing and, reading and writing. And if you've been pursuing it for maybe 2 years, then it's sort of strong evidence. So like, for instance, Canada, look at French being, an important language. You've taken a DELF, or you've taken, any exams over there to show them that you're doing, better. Schools would really like that. So I would say that in Canada, you probably have an upside to it for a second. If you're applying to Germany, you have German on it. It's probably, if you're applying to the US, you have Spanish, and you really want to say that you've been learning Spanish for 2 years, but where have you been applying it, for instance? It does help, but it's not going to make sure that it pushes you through the door. But yes, it does help you because it helps the diversity which they're looking for from a class. What should be the ideal duration for volunteering experiences with respect to resumes while applying for postgraduate colleges? Duration of volunteering, as I said, I think that if you're looking at 6 months, it would help you a lot more, 6 months to a year, than just putting it one. I mean, I've seen students doing work with Teach for India, for instance, and they have these 3 month, 6 month programs and stuff. Some of them have done 2 years. So some of them have actually gone to a YIF, program, for instance, and they've done some kind of, extra work in terms of really, volunteering. And they've stayed consistent with even road track, for instance. So 6 months to a year is what I would say. Yash, what is the eligibility criteria for the best scholarships? I think academic is probably number one. So if you've academically done really well, you've participated in maybe Olympiads or done something extraordinary, you need to show that. And I feel that's where you would be able to really, benefit the most. How particularly could a student keep
Excuse me,
themselves?
sir.
Yeah.
So sorry to interrupt, but we are just running late on the time. So we need to stop
Okay.
here.
Great. So I think what we'll do is, since our time's up, what I would suggest is that you all put these questions across, to, the rest of the team. I think the email IDs can be provided. That's what I would say. I think the
Yes,
last
sir.
slide. Can we have the last slide? 30, yeah. Okay, fine. So we could have the last slide where, you all can push your questions. And I feel the rest of the team also is here and you can push your questions. Of course, you spoke right now to, Rahul and Suraj, and there is of course Rupal as well. So you can post your questions, and happy to take any of these and work with you all. I think you're a very bright bunch of kids, and I was an IESECer when I was at Michigan, and it's amazing the kind of work that you can get to do here. So good luck, and thank you guys for everything.
It's great to hear that. So thank you so much. Like the session was really, insightful, and we got a better understanding about how to make our resume stand out, and about the education abroad and everything. So with that, I would like to thank all our speakers for their insights on such dominant topics, and for the audience for being so interactive. And I'm sure there's so much to take back from today's webinar.
Thank you for watching this video, and I hope to help you with your goals and aspirations to attend a top university.